Alright, welcome back for some Hades. This video, I should say, I'm struggling to come up with the term for it because it's not a run video, it's not a doing, like, see how far I can get stream. This is just an...
Just come back next time.
I love you, Sisyphus. Anyway, this is just an aside talking about our good friend Sisyphus here. So, the Sisyphus in Hades, I love to death. I love him to death. I love him so much. And I love all the things that went into him, because he may or may not also be a reference to 20th century French existentialism, which is a school in philosophy, particularly the works of Albert Camus as well. So, who is Sisyphus? Why is he here? And why am I linking him to French existentialism? So, in Greek myth, because shockingly enough, Hades, everybody here is a character in Greek mythology. Crazy, I know. Sisyphus was a trickster king, basically. He gets credited as founding the city of Corinth, though that is disputed. But he shows up in a bunch of fables with a rough story of him basically being a trickster king that cheated death not once, but twice. The first time, when Thanatos came for him, he tricked him and chained him up, so that way nobody could die. Unless he was released, which he was. In the second cheating of death, he basically told his wife to not perform the proper offerings for the dead and the proper, basically, burial stuff for him, and then pled with Hades up, down, and sideways that if you could just let me go and I could, you know, instruct my wife on how to do this properly, and then all would be well. And then he just never came back. Wild, I know. But the time after he died, then Zeus intervenes in the original myths and says, no, 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 no. And we need to make sure this guy suffers a lot so no one will ever try to emulate this guy, because that was bullshit. Fuck you. And so Sisyphus is cursed to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, and he can stop once it gets to the top, but every time it almost gets to the top, the boulder, by its own weight, will come rolling back down, as is described in the Odyssey. And so we have Boldy here, and Sisyphus. But Boldy and Sisyphus here, Sisyphus does not seem like a man who's been forced to suffer the worst torment of all forever. He's, you know, he seems pretty happy every time you see him. Hell, he's punched a smiley face into his boulder. Like, he doesn't seem to be suffering that much. And that ties into Albert Camus and why Camus references him in his work. The work is actually flat out titled Sisyphus Smiled. And what it gets into is there are some things, so we see the big picture when it comes to Sisyphus and his punishment. We think, oh my god, that must be horrible to have to continually do this futile task that you will never be able to complete. But it's all you can do and all you have to do, and that is so terrible. But Albert Camus says there are some things, and that may be one of them, which is why we get into that you just, if you step back and look at a big picture like that, you don't understand the experience. So take, for example, the philosopher. I listen to the Philosophize This podcast. They're how I really got into this, and I am going to steal his example because it's a good one. Or to steal the teaching quote: "Beg, borrow, and steal. Don't reinvent the wheel." So the example of this, things like, say, making out. If you take a step back and look at the thought of making out, or, you know, deeply kissing your significant others, it's, I'm going to put my mouth against your mouth, I'm going to slip my tongue into your mouth, you're going to slip yours into mine, we're going to exchange the fluids our body uses to digest foods and expel illness, and maybe, you know, I'm going to wrap my arms around you and feel on, like, what type of clothing you're wearing and enjoy that fabric. Like, when you phrase it like that, no one will ever kiss you again. Just flat out. You can quote me on that. Seriously, try it sometime. See how far that gets you. And so looking at it that way, you know, why on earth would you ever do this? This sounds terrible. Like, it's a bad time. But, like, you know, obviously, people do it. And people enjoy it a heck of a lot. Crazy, I know. And that's what Albert Camus was getting at. He's saying, like, there are some activities that just, when you look back, and he views life that way, too, because if you look at it, what is life but rolling a boulder up a hill that you can never actually get there, because then you'll die. Yeah, take that for what you will. But, and so for Albert Camus, he's like, well, but maybe Sisyphus isn't suffering from this torment. Maybe he's come to accept it. He's come to enjoy his task, where this task becomes the thing. And, like, it's everything he cares about. And so it doesn't matter that it'll never be finished. He's enjoying himself regardless. Which is why you'll notice Sisyphus is upbeat in this. It's funny because Sisyphus is flat out states as not being afraid of Thanatos. I actually just got done with that conversation shortly before this, because I was just trying to run to make sure I got to this room so I could talk about Sisyphus and why I think this game is referencing both the myths and 20th century French existentialism while I have my example here, instead of just doing it in the House of Hades or somewhere that doesn't matter. But yeah, this is just a little tangential aside. I don't know how long I'm going to make this, but I greatly enjoy just the effort that's gone into this game. Now, again, I could be projecting, because with French existentialism, most people hate it because it's very unsatisfying, because the work of Albert Camus, most people are more familiar with, at least the only one I actually had to encounter in school, is his work of The Stranger, which was a fiction piece. I loved to death. I was the only one in my class who loved it to death. Everybody else thought I was kind of weird for loving it to death, because it's very unsatisfying if you don't understand the point he's making. Because it's the whole premise of The Strangers. It's basically this guy, the narrator is reliable, but he only explains the what of things, and it is the main character is the narrator. It starts with things like mother died today, or maybe it was yesterday, I'm not too sure. And it's stuff like that where he's just overly factual, and like there's no like feeling or anything behind him. And so he ends up going up with his friend, and his friend's like, hey, so this dude's mad I slept with his sister, and this might come to blows, so here, have this pistol and back me up if something happens. And so the argument started getting heated, and the main character shoots the other guy. Then he unloads the rest of the bullets in the revolver into the guy's corpse, and just kind of turns himself in. I don't remember if he turns himself in or if he just doesn't resist when the cops come the next day. But one of the two. And then during the trial, almost none of the trial has anything to do with what actually happened. And he's baffled by it because he tried to plead guilty, but his lawyer convinced him not to, if I recall correctly. It's been 7 years, give or take, 7-8 years, since I read it, so my memory's a bit hazy. And all the like character stuff is like, this guy's like, you know, he never cried at his mother's funeral, you know, like, and it's like stuff like that, like he never cried at his mother's funeral. Or his neighbor coming in and saying, like, you know, he always looked after me and my dog. Like, you know, like, nobody else would ever help me if my dog ran away, but he would always be there for him. Like, and it's all this character stuff. And the narrator's just confused as shit. He's like, what does any of this have to do with the fact that I shot a man 6 times? Like, why are we doing this? And then at the end, there's this great speech that is like, it was never about you. It was never about what you did. It was all about the pomp and spectacle to keep the people entertained. And he's like, well, I guess that means I'm useful for something. And that's where it ends. So if you're trying to follow the story and not understanding the point, it's very, very unsatisfying. But if you're just like taking the point where it's like, none of that mattered though, where they're like, but what about, like, you know, like, that's not closure, like, he's found guilty after all, but like that, there's no closure there, like, it's barely even a thing. And so people are like, what the hell? But again, the point was, none of that mattered. And so it's a very bizarre school of philosophy, even among philosophy circles. But the fact that Hades may or may not be referencing it is just another part of why I love this game. Like, everyone has done their, like, this is a very researched game, is how I'd classify it. because, you know, like, all the characters are as one would expect them. Like, you know, the primordial chaos is just kind of out there. Artemis is a loner, which is the case in Greek myth. Fucking, you know, like, shit like that. It's just Sisyphus being Sisyphus. Sisyphus is probably, like, this is probably my favorite dynamic just because I am a massive philosophy buff. And this references not only mythology, which I am also a massive buff of, which is why I love this game in general, like the aesthetics of it, but also just seeing both of those things referenced in Sisyphus here just makes me so happy. Like, again, he's nicknamed his boulder Boldy. He punched a smiley face in it. Like, I love everything about this. There is not a single thing I don't love about it. And I just wanted to get this off my chest in an aside video. This run won't be going up because I didn't know how long it would take me to do this. And I wanted to do this as a particular video. So this thing where I'm using...
Ready for the road ahead.
Yep. Yes, I am. Thank you, Sisyphus. And like, yeah, he's so fucking mellow, and I love it. But yeah, so like all this, like I have good boons so far. Actually, this is gonna be a good run, which is a shame I'm not. I have the duo boon of Artemis and Ares already, where the my cast creates the blade rift that seeks. I've got, well, I just unlocked Demeter, so I have the Demeter boon for my special. But yeah, no, this might be a good run. It's gonna be a shame I'm not recording it, but I have hopes for it. But yeah, I just wanted to take this tangent to talk about Sisyphus, because there's no guarantee you'll run into Sisyphus. Like, I've had, like, the past 3 or 4 runs I didn't run into him. So it is very nice to see him and see Boldy. And so I was fully prepared to have to do a few runs before I would run into him again. But that wasn't the case this time. This time he was just right there when I went looking. So I'm happy I'm able to talk about this. Love this game. Love the work that went into this. Love everything about this. Obviously there are some license later on. I've been watching Tear of Grace's streams on it, so I know some pretty end game story stuff, and there's some license there outside of mythology, but otherwise, which it had to, because it makes this game story make more sense, honestly. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. Love it, love this game, love it to pieces, love everything about this. And just wanted to get it off my chest in a little side video of why I love Sisyphus so much. If people like this, I might try to do some about some of the other characters. But this is just one of the ones that I knew going in. Like, again, running into the just mellow, happy Sisyphus here with Boldy. Those references were things I already picked up going in, and so I wanted to do a quick video about this. So yeah, let me know if you want to see more of this. I don't know why you would or wouldn't. But hey, I love this. I love everything about this, and I can't say it enough. And I'm running in circles now, both in game and in my speech patterns. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video though. Let me know if you want me to do more stuff like this, or try to like delve into lore stuff of other games in the future. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.